Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. As data shows school crime and violence increasing, many school systems are turning to weapons detectors. These machines use sophisticated technology to find possible weapons. But are they accurate? WRAL Investigates senior producer Randall Kerr joins us to tell us about how he put one of these detectors to the test. Randall, thank you for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Grace.
How do these weapons detectors work, and who's making them?
So there are several companies that make them, and they all use different types of technology. What most people know from years ago is just straight-up metal detectors. And those are pretty simple. There are two poles that they detect metal moving through it. So a gun's going to get caught, a knife is going to get caught if they're made of metal. Weapons detectors are much more high-tech. They use a variety of technology, including thermal imaging, something called millimeter wave technology. So something I didn't know that I found out in researching this story is everyone's body gives off what's called millimeter waves. And so this technology will scan a person's body and locate spots on the body that their millimeter waves are not coming off of. And then it takes that photo along with the thermal imaging and other technology and basically run it through a computer that's programmed, it's artificial intelligence that's programmed to put all these pictures together and go, oh, that is possibly the size, the shape, the density of what could be a weapon. Let's go ahead and flag it. And so a lot of school systems in our area have added them. I want to say we're up to 6 or 7 in our viewing area. And we wanted, for years to put these to the test after some research, actually out of London, raised concerns about how accurate they were when it came to detecting knives at a sporting event. So we've been wanting to test these for a while, and we finally got a school system to play ball with us.
Right, and I know that these evolved detectors are being used around the states. That's one of these companies that does this. When I was a reporter in Greensboro, I remember Guilford County Schools started installing these in the last couple of years. So you said that 6 or 7 districts in our area have them. Do you know about how many districts are using these across the state?
It's actually not that many. You mentioned Guilford. I know Charlotte, which is the second largest school system in the state, they have them at a majority, if not all of their schools by now. I know definitely middle and high schools, and they've had pretty significant results. And I saw this morning that Onslow County out on the coast, they just voted to add weapons detectors to their safety arsenal. Now, I'm not sure which company they chose. I just kind of read the headline. But it's a growing number. And, the debate with these things that you hear with school systems that have them and school systems that don't is the school systems that don't or reluctant to get them say, well, they're not 100% accurate. And we have better ways to keep our students safe than weapons detectors. The school systems that have them will argue this is a tool in our way to keep our students safe. But even if it catches as little as 20% of the paraphernalia coming in schools, that's better than nothing. So it just depends on what side of the argument you fall. So again, after hearing those arguments from the school systems for and against, we really wanted to try to see how these work, to understand the intelligence behind them, and to see what they found.
And what districts did you reach out to try to see these, and how did you eventually get to the point where you were able to go in and test them?
I don't want to name the ones we reached out to that declined. I can generally tell you that the reasons, and we spelled out exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring multiple items with complete cooperation of the school, complete cooperation of local law enforcement, and in most cases, local sheriff's department to provide the school resource officers, that we wanted to bring our items into the school just to see what it caught. Some school systems that declined said that they thought that would be divulging too much about their security plans, even though we had no intention of, and we will not report, this got through and this is how it did get through. That wasn't
right.
It's not the goal of the story. In other school systems, in wake of what happened recently at Southeast Raleigh High School, where the young boy was stabbed to death, they thought testing these at this time would seem insensitive to what happened in Wake County, so they declined. So after reaching out to multiple school districts, Edgecombe County, which is in the eastern part of our viewing area, had full faith in their system and wanted to show it off.
So every school in Edgecombe County has Evolve.
That's correct. All of our 13 traditional schools. The only two that do not have Evolve systems are two early colleges because they are on different campuses.
We're very welcoming to have us come out and test our objects.
And tell me a little bit about what it was like when you got to the school and got to walk through one of these detectors. Was it what you were expecting?
Yeah, our unit, we've done so many stories on these detectors since they first started, popping up at local schools or have been part of discussions in school boards. So we got there. So we had seen them in operation in the past. But just in general, some school systems wouldn't let you, if it alerted to something, you couldn't see what the person found or what they had. Some were even skeptical. They wouldn't even want to show you the monitor that flags where something on someone's body, it may have something, some sort of paraphernalia. So yeah, we went through, I had a backpack, a couple different backpacks of, different sizes, about a couple dozen different items, some which could be weapons, some which could potentially be weapons, and some that couldn't be weapons, but may look like them. Not to give it away. We brought in knives, we brought in different tools that could be used as weapons. We had things that looked like weapons that in theory couldn't be used as weapons, like a staple gun and like a glue gun that you'd use for crafts because of the shape of it. So we brought in all sorts of things, and sometimes we brought in two at a time, one at a time. We mixed it up and kept testing the system. We had some things in the backpack, some things in pockets, some things in my pants leg. And so we just went through and, I probably walked through that thing about, it seemed like 100 times that day as we tried different combinations of things.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break there and we'll be right back. Randall, you were telling me about the different things that you brought through and how you sort of tested these weapons detectors. What did these tests show?
In general, and like I mentioned before, we don't want to report about what it necessarily didn't catch, especially some things that could be used as a weapon or how it got through.
Right.
But in general, what we found is, even things that weren't weapons, 75% of the things that we tried to bring in were flagged by the system. So 3 out of 4 were flagged. And like I said, not all of them were weapons. But of the items that, we felt could be used as a weapon, 90% were caught, which was a lot higher, including, the knives. Mm-hmm. But it did catch things like an electric or a battery-powered screwdriver, mainly because of its shape and because of its density. Because it probably had the look and the feel of a gun based on the AI technology. But it didn't catch other things like a small plastic flashlight because it seemed it just wasn't a threat, even though it's a solid object that was in my backpack. Mm-hmm. So it didn't flag some things, but like I mentioned earlier, those who say, well, it's not 100%, so we don't need it, we have other ways to do things. And, to me as a parent, one child that's still in the school system, 90% of catching of weapons seems pretty good to me, especially if you have a child at a school that doesn't have anything at the front entrance.
And what did the folks at the school say? Edgecombe County obviously put these in place. Do they feel pretty good about these results too? Absolutely.
I think the sheriff's exact quote when we told him
90%, that's an A.
Yes.
So.
I'll take it. Let's put it that way. I'll take it. And at the end of the day, we're going to work towards, from that 90% to what you saw today, we're going to work towards 100%, making sure we improve and making sure we can get all the bugs out. But our number one goal, keeping our children safe.
He and the other school systems that we talked to across the area made it very clear that even though they have these systems, they do see them as just one layer of security. They're still just as reliant on student tips. They're just as reliant on just teachers being aware. They're just as reliant on the entire school community looking after themselves. And that this is a tool that they can use at the front end of the school day, and they're very, happy with the results so far?
It's been amazing, actually. We thought that we would get a lot of pushback from families and students. As parents and educators, your first thought always is that putting a big machine at the front of the door is going to create angst or paranoia for students. Actually, when we put them in the front, students said things like, finally, it took y'all long enough. What we found is that students, through our mental health providers, through their conversations with the SROs and some of the surveying that we were doing, although we did not have any kind of weapons detection systems, our kiddos still felt that same angst and paranoia. So kids are happy about it. Of course, there's some that don't want to empty everything out in their backpacks. You know how moody teenagers can be. However, we've seen nothing but positivity from our community and our stakeholders.
And the other thing that they talked about is, even if this thing came back and showed that, it only flagged 40% of the things, they see it as a massive deterrent. And we've seen that, in the Charlotte school system, where they installed these and they had multiple guns found on campuses. And that's why they decided to put them in. After this device, I don't think they found any, or maybe they've gotten one. But Edgecombe County said when they deployed these, the students didn't know much about the technology or how it worked. So on the first day of deployment, they did a sweep of the grounds, and they found pocket knives, vapes, all sorts of things that were just thrown in the bushes and stuff around the campus because the kids thought they'd get caught. That
Wow.
speaks to the deterrent, that if you know that you've got to walk through this before you enter the school and you get caught, you're going to be in serious trouble. And look, we all know, and the schools are well aware of this, there are other ways that, things can get into schools. But especially to Edgecombe County and the other school systems that we talked to, even though they didn't want to partake in our test, they know that this is a huge deterrent to walk in the front door with. And, if they didn't believe in the technology, they wouldn't have purchased it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Randall. Really a lot of insight on these weapons detection systems for parents to keep in mind. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you've listened to this podcast on WRAL.com or the WRAL News app, you can also find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow the show so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for listening.